All right. Good morning and good evening, good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you're joining and watching. We're live today on the AI and SCM Tech Talks with Professor Lewis with a particular focus on data. Yeah, it's a Q&A, and that's the mode of the questions. First, let's say that we sincerely apologize for having to reschedule due to circumstances beyond our control. But we'll be very quick. We've got eight submitted questions, and then we'll pick up other questions as they come in. I believe this should already be up on LinkedIn. We are streaming from the studio, the Restream studio, and we hope this is already up on LinkedIn. Looks like there's a bit of a lag, but we will continue nonetheless. All right. So, Louis, good morning, and thanks for joining in this Friday morning. It's evening over here in West Africa. Thanks for joining in.
Good morning, Ade Yinka Banjo, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to actually be interviewed by you and welcome audience. I'm also excited to have these exchanges with you all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let's go right into it. We've got 30 minutes. Hopefully, we can do justice to all of this and any other questions that will come up from the LinkedIn live stream. All right. So, the first question we have here, I mean, this is all about data. Um, the, the question basically says, what exactly is data? What qualifies to be called data? And how should I be gathering it? So this is from someone who's, trying to find out what is data, what qualifies to be called data, and how should I be gathering it?
That's a very interesting question, by the way, because a lot of people misconstrue what data actually is. They look at data as the final outcome, whereas data is, the input. It's not actually the output. Data can be interpreted in several ways, but in general terms, data is raw, organized, unorganized, facts that are just scattered there out there. In this day and age, everything that we do is highly dependent on data. But that data alone, be it graphics, be it text, uh, based on previous conversations that were recorded and later on transcribed, that cannot deliver valuable information. Valuable information can only be retrieved from a data set once that data is cleansed and properly analyzed and interpreted. And so that's when it becomes valuable information. And so what qualifies, something to be called data? Everything could be looked at as data. The qualification for something to be called data should not, be minimized, because we can easily transform even signals to meaningful information, right? Just basic
Right.
signals. I'll give a couple of examples. Maybe your CCTV, it is picking up, information wherever you deploy them. That's data. And of course, the raw data needs to be what? It needs to be organized. It needs to be interpreted within whatever context that you are pursuing. And of course, I give you an example in quality control, for instance. If you have a certain tolerance within which you want to, certify certain products that are coming from an assembly line, for instance, right? So that exercise alone, picking up samples from, products as they move through the production line, well, it doesn't tell you anything. You need to come up with some framework, a methodology to actually, go through that process of transitioning that raw data into proper information that will help you in whatever business endeavor. And so, how can you gather it? There are different ways of actually picking up data. I talked about the signals, for instance. I
Mhm.
mentioned CCTV. I talked about a quality control initiative in an assembly line. Also, don't forget about the most common one that we have, which is your common surveys. You deploy a survey instrument, and you are hoping that you're going to get as much respondents as possible, because again, a good analysis is predicated on a large sample size. So you have to put all these things into context when running any kind of analytics endeavor. And I will end here, because the whole framework, when we talk about data collection, there is a framework that I use, to teach my business analytics and statistics students,
Yeah.
especially at the junior level. This framework is framed DCOVA. So I call it DCOVA, meaning define, collect, organize, visualize, and analyze. So in every business analytics endeavor, or maybe something in public administration, wherever you need to conduct some sort of analysis where data is at the center of everything, you need to go through that sequence, meaning you need to first of all define the type of data that you are going to be seeking. We are not at collection yet. Define
Okay.
it. Are we going to be having a conversation? We are generating data right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And are we going to be looking at secondary data, retrieving data from a data bank, maybe coming from the IMF, if we are conducting some research that is based on econometrics, the World Bank, IMF, and things like that. Those are secondary data because they are not actually coming from your own efforts primarily. You are just inheriting the data from a repository. So, in a nutshell, using that particular framework that I just mentioned, to be able to define, the data before you get into the process of collection adds a lot of value to that process.
Fantastic. I mean, there's a particular focus on data, primarily driven by the advent of AI, and of course, from last year to this year, agentic AI. Who knows what's next? But thanks for laying that foundation. Let's quickly run through to the next one. Someone asks here, what does it mean when people say data is an asset? What does it mean when people say data is an asset?
Well, data is a great asset. I laid down that foundation for us to see what can come out. And even though data is intangible, our world, our economy is predicated upon things, tangible things that we can touch and feel. But don't forget that the orientation of our economy is more service driven. So we call that a service type economy. So in this position of looking at things from intangible point of view and tangible point of view, you can look at data from both sides, from both angles.
Right.
So it's intangible in its characteristics, but it's an asset. It's something tangible because of the potential of being transformed into something tangible. So that's where the asset characteristics of data actually comes in. Um, think about it. If you have a good data that can last you for a long time, you can always revisit it. Most of our operations are predicated upon good estimations, forecast, and things like that. And you forecast only based on historical, data. So if you have that, that can actually lead to very, very valuable situations. Look at marketing, for instance. If you
Yeah.
if you if you if you are going to improve your product through your research and development, that is something that is driven by data, because of course you're getting data from the usage of your product through many different devices, like for instance your POS, point of sale. That also ties into the whole marketing thing. So that data in itself is very, very valuable, to the point that we can actually term it as an asset.
Fantastic. So data clearly is an asset.
It's an asset.
Yeah.
Are we waiting for some more questions, or? Are we waiting for some more questions?
No, we are going ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going ahead to the next question, which really is, I think we've got about 8 questions. So I think the reason why we seem to have had a lag there is because the live stream on LinkedIn just came up. But we'll continue on Restream, and hopefully there's a way to sync them at some point. Yeah. So I'm just going to mute. All right. So the next question: how do I determine what data to collect and which to ignore? How do I get clean, standardized data from suppliers and partners? I'm sure this person probably is a procurement professional.
That's right. It seems to be coming from the procurement stream, and I think we all. That's where we started primarily. Procurement is a very, very important and strategic, a department in an enterprise. That's where most of the cost savings, as far as supply chain, can be realized. So when you talk about how do you manage supplier data, there is always this interface between the main company and its suppliers. The supply chain could be diverse. So you have alternate suppliers, you have primary suppliers, and so you need to think about data ownership. You need to think about how this data is going to be managed across all your suppliers. It could be one particular component that you are actually sourcing, but again, you have alternate source of supply and you have a primary supply. Most oftentimes, we want to, we always rely on our primary suppliers. Those are the suppliers that we want to, come up with a strategic sourcing relationship. And in these types of relationship, when it comes to data, I'm looking at a situation where the two companies would be advanced in terms of their digital transformation. Talking about the type of enterprise systems that they already have. So again, the clean, how clean the data is going to be is dependent on the systems and the data governance that's put in place, and how they are going to negotiate, and the technologies that are going to drive that. Back in the days, I know we used to use the electronic data interchange, which is really, really old right now, the EDI.
Yeah.
Right. And this is something that is still in use. It's still ongoing. It's still in use. And it's good. You have signals that are actually transmitting purchase orders, from the main company to its suppliers and back and forth. Now, this whole arrangement has been enhanced. In this day and age, some companies are using API. These are really standard, programming, interfaces that have been created, and they can be tweaked. So based on your strategy, that API can be, made in such a way that the mapping of your data, there is some sort of harmonization before you start mapping data between the two organizations. Don't forget, You are not obliged to be using the same ERP system. Take for instance, I'll give you an example, and I'll just use company X and company Y. Company X buys from company Y. Company Y is using SAP, and company X is using Oracle. Now they have different data formats, so they need to generate an API or develop an API that is going to speak to these two systems. Even though we have cloud, deployment that will enable that to happen, but again, based on our strategic governance structure and our goals, the alignments that we have actually, carved out, we should be able to know what to map and know where redundancies come into play. And I think we are going to talk about master data governance later. So I don't want to get in there, but it's seeming to be something that is that have some interrelationship.
Fantastic.
Right. So again, it is very, very important that we understand this. I'll give you another very a good example. Think about something like a product that you are actually selling. That product may be a finished good in the supply side, but then in the demand side, it becomes a raw material because you just need it as input to actually add value and resell. So again, we need to be very careful when getting that mapping set up. So it's all about governance. It's all about making sure that the interfaces are right and they adhere to the overarching strategy that has been decided upon by the two partners, meaning the supplier and the company itself.
Fantastic. I think there are lots of things that one would look at least from a procurement point of view. And thanks for taking our time to look at these questions ahead of today. That gives it a certain robustness. Okay, looking at time, I think we are halfway through on the number of questions, and we're not doing too badly with time. The next question. I think you already touched a bit on this, but I guess here's an opportunity to elaborate. So how can I build a data governance framework that works? So how can I build a data governance framework that works?
First of all, this is a very good question. Governance framework. How are we going to be managing our data? How are we going to be classifying the data? What do we consider as redundancy? From a Pareto analysis, what is important? You have the 80-20 rule. Focus on your high value items and so on and so forth. So these are all things that we need to align with our business goals. And if we have that alignment and we want to treat data, we come up with a framework that is going to last for a long time. Now, these frameworks are generally not stagnant. They are iterative, meaning we go in and see if at all it's working, if at all it's generating redundancy, if at all it stands the test of time. If not, then we tweak certain things, because again, as our businesses evolve, things do change. Data get reclassified from a data type point of view. And so we need to bear in mind that our governance framework is just something that is not just working in isolation. It needs to be revisited, it needs to be retweaked, and so on and so forth. I will talk about master data governance and use that as an example to typify a working framework. Let's look at one of the characteristics of a good governance framework. We need proper role assignment, role management. How do we manage roles? Who does what? Think about a very convoluted, logistics environment where we're receiving zillions of products, and of course, our account payable is then paying for these products. So there's an interface between accounts payable and the receiving portion of logistics. Now, if you give authorization to an accounts payable clerk to actually receive items, then we have a big problem there. Does that make sense? So your roles have to be properly mapped. In master data governance, mostly when it comes to ERP, we have something called the change access, or I would say the create access, the change access, and the view access. So probably someone from accounts payable in that sense will have view access as to whatever items have been received. So when it comes to goods receipt, what are the goods received that we had within a particular time frame? They'll use that for their analysis and see if at all they had corresponding invoices that tie with those goods receipts. So their job is actually to look at invoices and match them with the receipt that they did have. So if you give them, access to create goods receipt, oh boy, you are looking at in this day and age where we have all kind of criminal activities going on, and sometimes the criminal activities may not be inspired by the employees themselves, maybe just because of lack of due diligence from your implementation point of view. You are giving people an opportunity to become criminals. So all these things need to be, taken care of, when setting up your strategy. Who does what? How do we organize our role? We have zillions of data in the management process. Who actually creates them? Who changes them? And who actually will have the authorization to view them? So that's the display access that I was talking about. So these are all part of, a good governance framework.
Fantastic. And I mean, you kind of broke it down like a true former SAP analyst. I mean, you've had the boots on the ground on all these data-related questions. So clearly, you're a subject matter expert. Thanks for that. I think the next question, which are the data mistakes or missteps that undermine decision making? Which are the data mistakes or missteps that undermine decision making? I think this probably has to do with being different types of analytics, but I'll leave that to you. That's your core area, decision sciences.
Right. Decision sciences, that's an interesting part. Like decision sciences is predicated on good data. And if you have those mistakes and missteps, as you have clearly elaborated, then of course your outcome are going to be faulty. So we need to be very, very careful looking at things like the data quality. The data quality is of essence. Poor data will undermine your decision-making process. And again, you're already downstream when you're talking about decision-making. Upstream is where we actually, do our due diligence to, collect the data, define the data, collect the data, organize the data, visualize the data, like I mentioned, and of course, analyze the data. The analysis that we are getting is what we're going to use in that decision-making process. So if we have a poor, quality source by way of definition, by way of collection, by way of organization, by way of visualization, because sometimes, your CEO that are great decision makers will only look at some of these visuals, right? We have all sorts of, visual tools in Python, using several other tools that can actually, give you a direct idea about what is going on, if at all that's really succinct. And so if our source is not good, is generating a poor data sets, then we are in trouble. Another thing, which is not too related to the quality of data. Now you may have good data, but then in the decision making process, you tend to think that the correlation means causation. So this is the difference between correlation and causation. The fact that there's a correlation between two variables after the analysis doesn't mean that it implies implicit causation, right?
Sure.
So we have to be very careful. I'll give you a very a good example. If you run an analysis, data was good, and at the end of the day you find a correlation, and this is something related to maybe macroeconomic indices. For instance, I want to look at supply chain digitalization. This is a current research that I worked on. I want to look at the correlation between supply chain digitalization and global trade participation. So they should correlate. If you think about it, the more your supply chains are digitalized, the more you're greater you add to the global value chain, right? Because of course you have added that aspect of digitalization, and it's going to enhance your capacity to drive efficiencies, and thereby of course provide you a greater presence in global trade. So there is a correlation there, but does it imply causation? So at that decision making level, you can be misconstrued. It does not imply causation. So meaning there are mediating variables. For instance, infrastructure, policy, governance. There are things that are in between you that needs to be looked at. So you can spend money as an economy, right? I always look at third world economies, sub-Saharan Africa and things like that. You can put a lot of money in digitalizing supply chains. But if the framework from a governance and policy perspective is not there, those are the mediating, variables, then it's going to undermine your global trade presence, even though you have actually pumped a lot of money in that digital tech area. So this is another point where we have to be very careful in our decision-making process.
Fantastic. And thanks for building it up to supply chain digitalization and the causation too. Lots of people there's an AI craze out there, and everybody believes they need to do some kind of digital transformation. What I say to everybody is use what you have, start where you are, do what you can. Don't jump into the don't join the bandwagon for the
bandwagon. That's sort of that's right.
All right.
I think we are still having a lag, I guess.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think I lost you for a second, but I guess the backup kicked in.
That's good.
Fantastic. All right, the last question here. I think we're almost done with the pre-submitted questions. I do not see any on LinkedIn at this time. So if one does come in, because there seems to be a lag between the Restream studio and the LinkedIn studio. If one does come in, we'll handle those in the comments. Finally, this basically goes back to something you also talked about. Is there a difference between digitization and digitalization? Is there a difference between digitization and digitalization? Everybody's saying something digital transformation, digital this, digital that. But I guess this is just semantics. So I guess the person asking to be clear on what it is. Perhaps tap into your practical knowledge of both.
Yeah, and these constructs need to be they need to be made lucid for users, especially in this day and age where we talk about digital transformation, digitalization. I see students, master's degree, even at PhD level, they're still using digitization instead of digitalization. So again, let's not get that mixed up. They are completely different constructs, even though they are interrelated. Digitization is more transactional. Let me put it that way. at a high level, and digitalization is more strategic.
Okay.
So I'm saying that from a place of, you know, getting to look at them from an overarching business goal.
Yeah.
So if at all I want to digitize a particular, section of my operation, then what I'm doing is basically, moving things from analog, or moving things from text, or moving things from paper file that are sitting right there, and converting them into PDF files that are easily accessible in
Yeah.
a system, in a computer system. Then I am actually digitizing. So I'm
Yeah.
digitizing
Yeah.
in the sense that I'm converting whatever I have, look at it from analog to digital.
Right.
Look at it from, I have, raw information in paper files that have been accumulating around our office. If we have a a digitization initiative, we are basically, converting those files into more computer files that can be accessible at any time. So
Right.
again, it drives digitization, will drive efficiency. But
Yeah.
is that the end of the road? No,
No.
that's almost the first step of digitalization.
Yeah.
So digitalization then is strategic because it's a process.
Yeah.
You digitalize a process. A process was overly manual, and then you are moving it into an area or a space of automation. In that
Right.
in that sense, you are digitalizing. We
Yeah.
have recent technologies, and I've worked on several research in recent years on blockchain technology, for instance. So we have an enterprise that is fully digitalized, but
Right.
then because of the enhancements, we want to have the ability to, bring in some very stringent rules around our master data governance, around our engineering change processes, so that we can enforce, security when it comes to data, so that
Yeah.
we can assure our customers that the products that we are actually bringing are sustainable, and so on and so forth. They have, real-time access of the provenance. So that can be done by blockchain. And when you implement this layer on top of your existing, enterprise,
Yeah.
then that is also being termed as digitalization, because again, that's strategic. You are doing that for a
Right.
goal, for a purpose. So again, that's how we have to look at these two things. They are completely different, but again, they are interrelated. In order for you to get into a full-blown digital transformation, where you are actually affecting your processes, where you are
Yeah.
bringing your processes on stream in the digital platform, then you first of all need to make sure that the data and surrounding, facts need to be digitized first for easy access, so that
Correct.
that process
How they can be
is
used.
streamlined. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Louis. We are about 4 minutes over time. Check again for the LinkedIn um, stream. I see no comments or additional questions. I think we've thoroughly exhausted the pre-submitted questions, and we've done good justice to them by, touching on that very important buzzword, if you will, these days, digitization, or buzzwords,
That's right.
digitization, digitalization, so that they're properly used and the context is properly understood. Digitization being more like an operational thing, and digitalization more
More
strategic,
strategic.
and the specific examples that you've given. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate. Okay. There seems to be another question. Sorry, I'm going to have to hold you a while longer. Let me
Okay,
see.
no problem.
There's still two questions actually. So let me see. Yeah, two questions. Two questions. If you could just run through these two.
Mhm.
One is, I think, okay, can AI do the data gathering for me, and how can I achieve this? Can AI do the data gathering for me, and how can I achieve this?
We have this is a very good question, and the AI is something that if you look at, I guess you are facing the same situation in most
Yeah,
of the conferences right now around supply chain. The
yeah,
focus is on AI. We cannot
correct,
deny that.
correct.
Everywhere you go, as a matter of fact, it's so entrenched that I'm looking at it and I'm getting disappointed because
Yeah,
sometimes I come in, I'm looking for a particular thing within in a conference, and of course, the focus everyone is talking about AI. It's not a
correct.
bad thing. We are still struggling with it. We are looking at the future. Of course, it's already here to stay. A
Correct.
lot of things that we are benefiting from now in terms of technology, they were fuzzy back in the days, but now they are reality, and AI is a reality. It's there.
Yeah,
So, can AI do the data gathering for me? Yes, but we have to be mindful. How can we achieve this? There are different AI tools, Gen
yeah,
AI, Chat GPT. Even in academia, we have
yeah,
students that are actually, using that, to beef up their projects. Some of
yeah,
them can be so lazy to the point that they want to over rely on AI
mm,
for almost everything. And
yeah,
and this is not relegated to just students alone. I guess
yeah,
even people in the business. I left the corporate world several years ago, but I
yeah,
guess this practice, if at all you are being asked in the corporate world to bring a presentation, I bet you, about 80% of folks are going into AI and
correct.
querying. But again, you need to understand how to put on the right prompts
Yeah,
for you to get what you want. You need to scrutinize the output,
yeah,
and even if at all you do the right prompting from prompt engineering in AI,
yeah,
you may still have some issues, because I think your next question is talking about link rot, and this is
correct,
where it comes in. So
correct.
of course AI can generate a data, it can do all the data gathering, but again we have certain issues, we have certain limitations. There is bad data that can come from AI,
Correct.
and this can be maliciously done by other users. This
Yeah,
can also be something which is coming from mislink or link rot,
yeah,
within the system, and so you are not properly fed or you are incomplete, and so that's going to affect your whatever decision or whatever report that you are trying to generate. And it's not a
yeah,
bad thing. Think about you know um, a business user that's trying to put together a report or trying to make a case of a particular tool to be implemented in their department.
yeah,
What they do, they will try to, go take advantage of AI to see where parallel implementations had occurred. Does that make sense?
correct.
And so they can use that to beef up the raison d'etre, as we put it in
Yeah,
French. Why, the CEO should look at, that particular proposal and accent to it.
yeah,
Now, we have to be very, very careful. AI, there are copycat things, there are very faulty things that are within the system. They can be talking about a company that doesn't even exist. You pick that from AI. So
correct,
if you have all these data that you're trying to gather in order to make up your research, they need to be verified. They need
correct.
to be verified, meaning you need to still put some amount of time. That's why we don't see AI as something that's going to be disruptive. No,
Yeah,
as humans, we still have do our due diligence. It's not just going to be a copy and paste issue. No, it's going to be now we are
mhm,
advancing. Sort of like when automation came on board, it actually educated us, and we started embracing more superior roles, right?
correct,
More creative roles, and so
correct.
on and so forth. So that's what I see AI bringing on board. AI can actually gather the data for us, but we have to do our due diligence.
Thanks for that. I mean, that point about AI as hallucination, where they just forge
That's the
information
word,
and
hallucination.
hallucination there,
That's
and
right.
a number of other things. So yes, it can gather, and you mentioned how we can achieve that. Finally, link rot. What is it, and what is its impact on data and AI accuracy?
Well, I think these two will go hand in hand because if you have a situation where you have a hyperlink that is directing you to um, a site, a page, within our World Wide Web that is not, current. It may be broken because it was taken out. It could be a redirection, and so what happens? That gives you a faulty feedback, and so your analysis is going to be faulty. So we have to be very, very careful. This is the link rod is the 404, error, data error that
Correct.
you normally
That's it.
receive when
That's it.
you're running. And again, I wouldn't blame. Uh, I mean, the data space is so inundated in such a way that you don't expect, real time, updates in some of these links. People redirect them for several reasons.
Correct.
People, take them out for several reasons. We see that even in social media.
Yeah.
Someone put out something there, and it has a link, and then of course they take it out just because of some, one or two reasons that they indicate them, and so on and so forth. So it can really affect a data accuracy. So it's something that we should be mindful of. In research, your research, if at all you're using AI to support your literature review process, for instance,
Yeah.
which is not a bad thing, because good research is predicated on the methodology. So that's
Correct.
where people look at, you have a question and you want to resolve that question by way of research. And what methods are you going to use to answer that question?
Yeah.
First of all, you need to review the literature. AI can play a role, right? But again, when it comes to accuracy, going back to link rot, if at all you are accessing links that have been broken,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, and you want to rely solely on that data for your literature review, boy, you're in big trouble with the reviewers. so,
Absolutely.
so that is
Absolutely. Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to put a full stop on today's Q&A. Really, really, really important points and answers that you've given, particularly this one on link rot and AI. Most of the use cases on AI have to do with um, data that's available on the World Wide Web. But there's also internally generated data. I mean, there's a solution to link rot, but like you mentioned, it's a phenomenon that one needs to be mindful of.
Mindful.
Thank you so yeah. Thank you so very much for your answers and taking time out to actually prepare and to join in today. The rescheduling notwithstanding, I mean this has been a fantastic session. Just in the next minute or two, we are going to just mention that we still have our February focus. February focus is on trade, global trade, um, regional trade, nearshoring, offshoring, tariff. I mean, those are the kind of conversations that you see going back and forth. And we have another subject matter expert who will be taking on questions. So this is already up, and from today we'll start taking in questions ahead of February 27th. Again, thanks, Professor Lewis, for your time and for your answers. I'm sure this is available on the community. There might be some questions coming in on the comments area. I'm sure you'll probably make time for them out of your busy
I'll do
schedule.
some justice to them. Thank you. I want to thank AI and SCM Tech Talks. This is a fantastic initiative, and always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to other great topics. I see the topic about the trade. I have a recent research. I'm hoping that it's going to be published before mid-year, and this has something to do with globalization. This is a great opportunity. Continue with the good work, and I'm looking forward to when I'll be invited again.
Sure. Thanks, Prof. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And we go off stream now. Thank you. Goodbye.